Welcome to Shad's Guitar Show. Whether it's the gear or the players who made the gear famous, this podcast is about all things guitar. Well, hey everybody, welcome into Shad's Guitar Show. Thanks for joining me today. I'm excited to be with you to have a conversation about more guitar kind of stuff, which is what we typically always do. Well, not typically, that is what we always do. And as I'm speaking to you right now, I believe this episode is coming out after Thanksgiving and just before Christmas. And so the holidays are upon us, of course, and I hope that is good. I hope that you are looking forward to great times with family and friends, and that this season finds you in a good place. One cool thing that I'm gearing up to do with some friends is we do a yearly thing at a local tavern called Beer and Carols. And basically we do Christmas music. We do 2 performances. Each one is about 2 hours long. And it's just a great time. We usually get between 250 and 300 people that show up. And it's just a ton of fun. Everyone's singing along, enjoying themselves, and I'm really looking forward to that. Recently just went over the set list, and we've got all the songs down. It's going to be a lot of fun, so looking forward to that, and was kind of thinking about what guitar to play, and as I often am, just thinking about guitars in general. And as you guys know from the last few episodes, I've been on a real jazz exploration kick, and I'm just kind of started thinking about the quintessential jazz guitar, and I would say that it's got to be, there's a lot of guitars that might, qualify in that conversation, but it's got to be the Gibson ES-175 in my mind. So I started thinking about the ES-175. I've actually had a couple of real old ones. I had not long ago a 54, and once before that I had a 57. And those are guitars that you can actually still obtain for, well, maybe not anymore, but at that time when I had them a few years back, you could still get one for a not ridiculous price. Certainly, I think both of the ones I got for under $5,000, which is still a lot of money, but for a 50s Gibson, not a ton of money. But as you get into the PAF era of the ES-175, it's a whole different ball of wax at that point, as they say. So anyway, this episode, I want to dive into the ES-175, talk a little bit about it, talk a little bit about some of the famous players, and just get ourselves familiarized with this amazing guitar. All right, so today we're stepping into the world of jazz guitar royalty. We're talking about a guitar so iconic and so fundamental that an entire generation of players practically built the jazz vocabulary on it. And that is, of course, the Gibson ES-175. So the ES-175 hit the scene in 1949, and that was right at the time the electric guitar was beginning to find its identity. And guitarists were demanding more volume, more clarity, and just more control over their tone. Whether in big bands or small combo settings, they just wanted to be able to turn up. Gibson answered with the ES-175. It was a fully hollow guitar with a laminated maple top, Florentine cutaway, and a single P90 pickup. Now, it was more affordable than the carved top arch tops that Gibson was making at the time, and it could be amplified without feeding back like crazy. The 175 in the name, well, that was the original list price, $175. And if you're curious like I was, that's about $2,382 in today's money. Despite the relatively modest price tag, the ES-175 quickly became a serious professional instrument. And by the late 1950s, the guitar settled into its most famous configuration, 2 humbuckers, thanks to Seth Lover's brand new PAF design. That version, the ES-175D, is the model most associated with the jazz greats we think of today. So let's touch on a few of the legendary ES-175 players. Now, we'll start with Wes Montgomery, and yes, Wes was far more famous for the L5 that he would adopt later on, but in the early days of his career, Wes did use a Sunburst ES-175. Joe Pass. Early Joe Pass recordings, especially the Virtuoso era, feature him on an ES-175, and it was his main guitar. His ability to go from chord melody to bebop lines seamlessly was a perfect match for the guitar's clarity and dynamic response. Herb Ellis. Herb's collaborations with Oscar Peterson made his ES-175 tone legendary. Bright, punchy, articulate, perfect for cutting through a piano-driven trio. Pat Metheny. Before the Roland guitar synths, before the ES-335, and later his Ibanez custom models, Pat was tearing up the jazz world on a Gibson ES-175. His early ECM records have the unmistakable mid-range bite of the ES-175. And one of my favorites, Jim Hall. Now, Jim used an ES-175 during his early years, shaping the modern jazz guitar vocabulary with his warm, conversational tone. And proving that it wasn't just a jazz machine, Steve Howe of Yes used an ES-175 extensively in the prog rock world, especially for those clean, articulate passages and classical-inspired guitar lines. Some other notable ES-175 players, Kenny Burrell, Tal Farlow, Bucky Pizzarelli, Mike Stern in his early years, and this one really shocked me, Tony Iommi of Black Sabbath used it on early Black Sabbath demos. Over its 70-plus years of life, the ES-175 has become one of the most recorded guitars in jazz history. It's the bridge between old-school acoustic archtops and modern electric jazz style. Even players who moved to other guitars later often learned their craft on a 175. The ES-175 is still a benchmark for jazz tone, for playability, for that warm singing PAF tone, for the iconic silhouette that screams classic jazz guitar. Even as solid body and semi-hollow guitars gained popularity, the ES-175 never stopped being the standard for jazz guitar tradition. So that's the Gibson ES-175, a guitar that didn't just accompany the jazz greats, it shaped their sound. Whether you're a player, a collector, or just someone who loves the warm glow of a perfect jazz tone, the ES-175 stands in a class all its own. And as I always like to do, I've curated a short playlist of songs on Spotify that you can listen to that give you a great example and representation of that early jazz tone that I love so much, and you may find that you really enjoy as well. So click the link for that Spotify playlist in the show notes and check it out. So that's going to do it for our quick look at the ES-175, one of my favorite guitars because it is so synonymous with so many of my favorite players. And if you ever get the chance to play an ES-175, plug it into a great tube amp, roll the tone down just a little bit, and enjoy. And always remember, the best guitarist is the one who is having the most fun.